The Numidian cavalry was one of the most feared and effective light cavalry forces of the ancient world, famous for speed, mobility, and highly flexible battlefield tactics. Originating from Numidia in North Africa, roughly corresponding to parts of modern Algeria and Tunisia, these horsemen became legendary for their role in the Punic Wars, especially during Hannibal's campaigns against Rome. Unlike the heavily armored cavalry used by many other ancient powers, the Numidians fought with remarkable simplicity and agility, relying on movement, skill, and tactical intelligence rather than brute force. Their style of warfare made them extremely difficult opponents and earned them a lasting place in military history. The earliest major historical references to Numidian cavalry appear in the works of Polybius, particularly in connection with the Carthaginian military during the First Punic War. By this period, the Numidians had already developed a distinct cavalry tradition perfectly suited to the open landscapes of North Africa. Their horses, ancestors of the later Berber horse, were smaller than many contemporary war horses, but they were exceptionally fast, enduring, and capable of covering long distances with ease. These animals were not designed for heavy shock combat, but for speed, maneuverability, and rapid tactical movement. Numidian horsemen fought in a style that looked unusual compared to many Mediterranean armies. They rode without saddles or bridles, controlling their horses with incredible skill, using little more than a rope around the horse's neck and a small riding stick. This required extraordinary horsemanship, but it gave them unmatched flexibility and speed. Their equipment was intentionally light. They wore almost no armor, sometimes carrying only a small round leather shield, or occasionally using an animal skin for minimal protection. Their primary weapon was the javelin, usually carried in multiple numbers, along with a short sword for emergencies if close combat became unavoidable. Their true strength lay in their tactical methods. Numidian cavalry were not designed for direct collisions with heavily armed enemy formations. Instead, they specialized in harassment warfare. They would approach rapidly in loose formations, throw volleys of javelins at enemy troops, then quickly retreat before a counterattack could be organized. Once the enemy attempted pursuit, the Numidians could scatter, regroup, and strike again from another direction. This constant cycle of attack and withdrawal exhausted opponents both physically and psychologically. Against slower or less mobile armies, this style could be devastating. Although their attacks were not always decisive in the traditional sense, they created enormous tactical advantages. Enemy formations could be disrupted, supply lines threatened, communication interrupted, and commanders forced into defensive reactions. Armies that depended on order and heavy formations often struggled badly against such elusive opponents. Roman soldiers later experienced this frustration firsthand during campaigns in North Africa, where traditional Roman discipline could not always compensate for the sheer mobility of Numidian horsemen. The Numidian cavalry became especially famous during the Second Punic War, when Hannibal made extensive use of them in his invasion of Italy. While Hannibal's war elephants often dominate popular imagination, his cavalry arm, especially the Numidians, was often even more strategically important. Hannibal understood that mobility, reconnaissance, and battlefield deception were essential against Rome's larger military resources, and the Numidians provided exactly these advantages. At the Battle of Trebia in 218 BC, Numidian cavalry played a major role in drawing Roman forces into a carefully prepared ambush. Their aggressive harassment encouraged Roman commanders to act rashly, helping Hannibal shape the battlefield to his advantage. Throughout the Italian campaign, Numidian riders served not only as cavalry skirmishers, but also as scouts, messengers, reconnaissance forces, and raiders. Their knowledge of irregular warfare made them invaluable in disrupting Roman movement and gathering intelligence. Their contribution extended beyond battlefield combat. Moving through unfamiliar Italian territory required local adaptation, and the Numidians helped Hannibal navigate terrain, monitor Roman troop movements, and maintain communication across difficult landscapes. Their speed made them ideal for striking supply routes, isolating Roman forces, and creating uncertainty in Roman strategic planning. This constant pressure forced Roman commanders to become far more cautious than they preferred. One of the most dramatic shifts involving Numidian cavalry came later in the war through the rise of King Massinissa. Initially aligned with Carthage, Massinissa eventually switched allegiance and allied himself with Rome. This political realignment had enormous military consequences. At the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, Massinissa's cavalry became one of the decisive factors in Rome's victory over Hannibal. Leading thousands of Numidian horsemen alongside the Roman general Scipio Africanus, Massinissa helped neutralize Hannibal's cavalry forces before returning to strike the Carthaginian rear. This maneuver played a critical role in the collapse of Hannibal's army and effectively ended the war. The effectiveness of Numidian cavalry deeply impressed the Romans. Rather than dismissing them as foreign irregulars, Rome actively incorporated Numidian horsemen into its own military system. For centuries afterward, Numidian cavalry served as auxiliary forces in Roman armies, where their mobility complemented Rome's heavier infantry-based tactics. Under the Roman Empire, Numidian and Moorish cavalry units became valuable components of frontier warfare, reconnaissance, and rapid response operations. Numidian cavalry also appeared in later Roman civil conflicts. During Julius Caesar's campaigns in North Africa, Numidian horsemen fought on different sides depending on local political alliances. Their presence in battles such as Utica demonstrated that even centuries after Hannibal, their military reputation remained strong. What made the Numidian cavalry truly exceptional was not heavy armor, superior weapons, or overwhelming numbers, but adaptability and tactical intelligence. They represented a different philosophy of warfare, one built around movement, speed, flexibility, and psychological pressure. In an era when many armies focused on rigid formations and direct confrontation, the Numidians mastered fluid combat and indirect warfare. Their legacy is significant because they demonstrated that highly mobile light cavalry could reshape major conflicts, influence strategy, and challenge even the most disciplined armies of the ancient world. Whether fighting for Carthage, Numidian kings, or Rome itself, the Numidian horsemen proved that speed and skill could be just as powerful as armor and brute force.